Well, yeah. Go right ahead. I'm gonna make sure that mine is up and running as well. I think it's running on my other. It's up on my other screen because we always have it on one of my televisions. So if I have to get up and walk away, I can still watch. Yeah. Wow, you'd get ridiculously distracted. I was super fortunate to have picked up a two 19.1 or 19.5 inch Dell monitors a while back for free that do portrait side. So, and I have a 27 inch, so I have like three, and it just kind of like it's all flat against everything. I got lucky with that one, like really lucky. Of course, just let me know when to be quiet. Of course. Yeah, I was looking over them, and I was like, well, I kind of know the majority of most of this stuff, right? Like, I mean, that's not well, not kind of like this is all the stuff that I fucking talk about all the time anyway. The Symmetra we work looks interesting. Let's do this, man.
You are listening to Heroes Never Die, your one-stop spot for all the latest news, Overwatch League results, and mishaps in Overwatch. Here are your hosts, Totemly Drunk and Edinar. Yeah, man. I was a part of the community for a really long time. I always really enjoyed the Cavalry Never Dies. It was really like one of the best things that ever happened in the podcast at the time. So, really glad to be able to kind of rekindle that relationship and get you guys, back with us again. Just to say hello, even if it is for a high five for the evening. Just hang out for a little bit. But yeah, man, excited to be here. Excited to have some fun, talk some Overwatch.
Face painting. No, it's completely siloed to the information super area over in California and over in New Jersey and New York, right? Like I'm sitting over here in the the northern South, North Carolina. Nothing close to me. I mean, it could have tried to hit like the South, like maybe Atlanta or something, right? Like they have Delta there. They could at least do Overwatch. We'll get some love. Yeah. Sure. So I really think that the Reaper changes are probably the most drastic, the most heavy-handed, and I don't know that they're necessarily bad, but he's definitely become a pretty large issue when it comes to
the shield metas. Like, so we're obviously looking at, with Moira coming in to a higher healing rate, and with Brigitte coming in as a higher support rate, right? So we're looking at more shields coming in, and the dive, it's with that anti-dive that everybody always talks about. You see Reaper coming in and being able to cancel that without having to like circle around a tank for 2 seconds or what it feels like 2 seconds just to get that kill. So that one's really going to be the biggest, the largest piece, I think, of all of this. I think Mei's going to be interesting. She'll definitely get played more. She's still going to be niche, and she always has been. You can't really substitute her in for a tank or for a defensive character. She's good for walling things off, or directing your team and keeping them out of damage without having to waste a Reinhardt shield. I mean, these are the things that we obviously know, and in practice, that's really not going to change much. She's just going to become more useful during those times when she's a good pick to have. So not a big deal there. I played with the D.Va changes, and I got to tell you, I really just didn't feel anything different. It doesn't. If you just pay attention to where you're aiming, everybody thinks that you don't aim with D.Va. You aim with D.Va, like you have to. You're right, like you have to. I mean, yes, you just press your click down and go, but you're aiming, and if you put it on the head, you definitely just stay right with the character you're trying to take out. They're done. So I didn't really notice a difference there. But other than that, no, I do always complain about the Zenyatta right click. It's just the one thing that I hate the most. Don't know really why. I don't have a good reason for it. Just a little bit of salt, but I think that going down a little bit is going to be good too, just to lower my sodium internally. I have to agree with you. Right. No sound? I hear everything. Maybe they need to unmute their site. Maybe they had it muted for Overwatch League. So I think I'm heard, but you aren't. Yeah, that's what Express is saying.
Okay, yeah, it should be picking up now. That was weird. I think it's because it was on a different scene. Alright, yeah, we're good, guys. Sorry about that. Well, I can't really go back, so we're not going to just revert. So we will just have to catch the audio stuff and whatnot. But yeah, so really with these changes, I don't think we're going to see like a drastic change in regards to pick rates. The Reaper one, I'm still kind of on the fence about, but I don't think we're going to be seeing a lot of triple tank or quad tank, so I don't think it's going to be as noticeable as people are fearing it to be. So, I'm still kind of lenient, though, because on a lower end, Reaper doesn't have a ton of, I mean, he has a skill ceiling, but he is fairly easy to pick up at the lower ranks. So I think at the lower ranks, it could be a pretty big issue. But all in all, like, I think at the higher end, it's still going to be like maybe 2 CP, and that might be the only time we see him. But, we still have to kind of see how the meta is going to evolve with Brigitte entering the fold. So who knows? Like, it could be like something that could be game breaking, because I know initially, like, I definitely was looking at it like, oh my gosh, there's no way any of this can be going through. And of course, as tradition, things that we seemed appear to be like overpowered on the BTR just get patched right in. And that's been the case time and time again. And sure enough, same case again. So if Reaper does become an issue, just like in prior iterations of some of the other balance changes that have been pretty major, we'll see some of the numbers get tweaked a bit down. So all in all, though, pretty happy with the changes. But I'm gonna kind of keep a close eye on Reaper altogether. But the D.Va ones really aren't going to affect her at all in the long run.
No, not at all.
And speaking of Brigitte, we gotta verge on the path of not safe for work just a little bit, because my good friend Thist from Leg and Balls, who is a writer for Double Tap, posted a pretty good article over on their website that is kind of covering some of the searches on one of the more popular sites out there, that being Pornhub. And we've never been one to kind of refrain ourselves from covering some of the more unconventional news. I mean, we did it when the spoof porn movie came out for Overwatch, Oversnatch, so we had fun with that. And there were also some team names in the past that were on the verge of not safe for work, like My Dawn, going all the way back to beta days and whatnot, and we had a lot of fun with the show titles on that. But kind of looking at some of these search results, it was pretty interesting. So Pornhub basically does this article called Pornhub Insights, where they basically give a bunch of statistics out there, what's on a rise, what's not doing so hot right now. And with the release of Brigitte in Overwatch, they've seen a spike of 6,264% for Brigitte, exceeding 2 million searches within the first 10 days of her release. And this has been kind of a common theme when it comes to new Overwatch releases, and just Overwatch searches as a whole jumped 225%. Now, the major takeaway is the fact that D.Va, who has been the long reigning not safe for work queen of Overwatch, was finally dethroned. She dropped one spot, so D.Va no longer the top dog in this fight. But, she still is the most played hero in all of Overwatch, so take that, Brigitte. But Mercy, who has often been second in the searches for quite some time, saw a pretty drastic shift, dropping down to 5th, with Widowmaker and Tracer having gone up a spot. But really, the thing that I found hilarious about this was, I was on the Leg and Balls Discord, and, this had posted something about, the searches for, the top 10, characters, and there was one listed on there that, no one knew what the heck it was, and it was Blender. So I had to, sit down and kind of, tell people what exactly that was. So for those that aren't familiar, Blender is basically, 3D art. It deals a lot with modeling, a lot with rigging and animation. Basically, it's SFM, so that's the source filmmaker stuff. So, I'm sure if you've followed us in the past, you've probably heard me talk about SFM in the past, because there was at one point an attempt by Blizzard, specifically revolving the Overwatch content out there outside of the game, where they tried and failed miserably to remove SFM Overwatch porn off of the internet, and it's the internet. That is a winless battle. There's no way to get around it. It's going to be out there, and sure enough, Blender SFM stuff was in the top 10 searches. I don't know why it showed up in the character list, but it is there. But really, I was shocked that Farah, my girl Farah, didn't even make the top 10, but Orisa did. So I don't know if you can explain that one to me. I don't know if there's a lot of Omnic love out there, or people just really like robots and sex dolls. I don't know, but I just thought that was kind of peculiar. So yeah, that is a thing. But looking at all this stuff though, are you surprised to see a new hero come in and just kind of take over that outside of the game, or is this just par for the course at this point?
Brigitte is hot. Her dad is super short. Why wouldn't that be a thing? This is the internet, right? Aren't we talking about the same community, right? Yeah, no, I guess I would say that I'm not surprised in any way, shape, form, or fashion. I couldn't possibly be. Have you seen Brigitte? She's hot. Ridiculously.
Yeah, I'm just messaging something out. Yeah, and you know what's funny? When I look at this, I'm if Brigitte has Torbjorn's libido Like, who knows how many more offspring of that family we're going to see? Because, Torbjorn has been doing some work on that front. I don't know if you've seen, like, the family image that they shared during, like, Christmas time with all the kids around the fire, with, Reinhardt in the picture, but there were, like, litter everywhere. Like, he is hard at work all of the time, just, baking things in that oven. It seems like they got a new kid popping out just about every year. So he's, like, his wife is around the clock pregnant. I don't know how she can put up with it, especially dealing with that many kids.
Isn't it Torb plus 8? Is that what they call it?
Something like that. But yes, I'm expecting, it to simmer down a little bit. D.Va will more than likely reclaim her throne, and I know Thys is going to enjoy this conversation because, we do tend to delve into this stuff, and she's not afraid to cover it either, so, congrats again, Thys, for getting 1 million article clicks overall for all your work on Double Tap, and I know this one was making waves on Reddit, just like her previous ones, in regards to, similar content like this. But moving on, we got some major news that did drop, and this affects Blizzard as a whole, and that is the announcement of BlizzCon 2018. Woo! Alright, so BlizzCon this year, November 2nd, November 3rd, that is at the Anaheim Convention Center. So we got Wave 1 tickets going up on sale on May 9th, that is at 7 p.m. Pacific Time. And Wave 2 of the ticket sales will be going up May 12th at 10 a.m. Pacific Time. So that ticket cost for the low price,
$199.
$199. That's been like the price for quite some time. It used to be cheaper, but it is what it is. They do have the benefit dinner tickets again for charity. Those will cost a whopping $750, and again, those are also limited as well. But no news in regards to the virtual ticket information. That will be coming soon, but it's Blizzard, so that would be soon TM. So it could be a couple weeks, it could be a couple months. Who knows when it comes to Blizzard timing? It could be anything. But, with BlizzCon, we will have the initial rounds of those global championships for each of the Blizzard titles, commencing during the opening week, which will be taking place on October 25th, going through the 29th to see who will be competing on the big stage. And with that, we are going to get the return of the World Cup at BlizzCon. So, last year we had the old StarCraft 2 arena, which was great. That arena was packed throughout most of the World Cup. And, kind of looking at it, now the landscape has kind of changed. Obviously, we have the Overwatch League. The World Cup is being brought back. How big of a role do you think the Overwatch League players are going to have in this year's World Cup? Are we going to see, like, a huge turnout from those players?
They will be showcased front and center. They are the shiny new toy that Blizzard wants to show off to all of the world, and BlizzCon's the place to do it. I mean, this is the very first year of the fruits of over a decade's worth of work. I mean, we lost out on Titan, we got Overwatch, but even that was 4 to 5 years in the making, and now we're 2 years in, and this is the culmination. This is that that $100 billion shiny monkey that they want. Right? This is that toy that Blizzard has been working towards. And if they are successful here, they form the breakout American esport, the one that ends up on ESPN and not just on Spike TV, right? Like, and not necessarily to denigrate, right? Because these two things are unimportant in the world of streaming. So we're really just talking about semantical conversations. But what we're going to see going forward with any of this is it will always be pushing their main face product pieces, and that is what every single member of every single team in the Overwatch League is. That's what every single caster is. I mean, we're going to see a ton of the casters all over the place, and they're going to be reporting, and they're going to be like, having these conversations, and they're going to be interacting with the community because Blizzard wants that, and they're interested in that community building. And I have no doubt in my mind that will be the front and center 100% focus of this year's BlizzCon.
Absolutely. And last year, no surprise, it was South Korea coming out on top over Canada, which was kind of a big surprise for a lot of people. So with that in mind, do you think there is an early favorite? Are you just going to stick to your guns and pick South Korea just because it is South Korea and they are our esports overlords, or are you going to go for more of a dark horse pick?
Well, I think I'd like to just go ahead and state that I'm going to go for the dark horse pick out of the box, and with no short passion here, I'm picking America, obviously. But the reason is not because they deserve it from last year's just absolute garbage of a placement for a first match. Just absolute. They just should have done a better job at making sure that didn't happen. I'm not going to call anyone out because I just whatever. But no, I think America's going to take it this year, and the reason why is that unlike the years prior, South Korea is no longer siloed. Mm-hmm. They're not sitting over in South Korea developing new metas that no one else has ever seen and then dropping it on us right at the Overwatch World Cup. They're not saving their best tricks for last anymore. If they're developing tricks, they're probably using it to try and win in the Overwatch League, and they're not going to do much different outside of that. I mean, yes, they're going to try and do something crafty here and there, but ultimately, these people are still working within their professional bounds, and that's going to push them towards being, as not necessarily standard, but they're going to be seen. We already know what they look like. We already know their new tricks. I mean, you can already tell with, Boston Uprising, getting, taken down or, getting, dropping maps. It's not the same. I mean, Seoul gets beaten. Spitfire gets beaten. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Maybe if Sabiobi just kind of just turns God mode and takes South Korea all the way up, but.
I mean, New York has only lost to London, so bear that in mind. But that being said, when we kind of look at the landscape, there are definite favorites. You have South Korea, obviously. United States. I mean, you say like, well, they had a crappy placement, but okay. So kind of going back a ways, I remember before they even mentioned anything of a draw for like the brackets, they basically already had like a graphic made, where they showed it on stream. They already had, like, the top 8. They had the matches set at that point. And even in that graphic, U.S. drew South Korea, and then they did the draw, and I'm like, okay, this is going to be their chance. Maybe we won't, get the short end of the stick, but sure enough, they got South Korea again. So everyone else got a little bit better of the deal. But when we look at the landscape, you have to think, well, South Korea and U.S., both very good chances. Sweden... Right. Was a very big standout last year. They got 3rd place over France in what was Rogue's swan song, because that was the last time they competed together as a team. So really, like, I want to see whether or not they're going to bring back that Rogue lineup for France. But if you are going for a dark horse, I think Sweden would probably be the best offside chance, but it's ultimately going to come down to, well, the United States is great. I mean, I'm not going to deny, like, their team has been pretty solid. Can Sinatra outduel Sabiobi? He couldn't last year. Can somebody answer Flower? No. I don't know, but it was pretty. Yeah. It was like it was one of those like breakout performances, and it put everyone on notice. And while he hasn't had the same success in Contenders so far, he is going to be entering that LAN environment for the Contenders playoffs for NA for XL2 Academy. So who knows? We might be seeing a little bit of the preview for World Cup. But the gap when it comes to the play across the board has been getting narrower, especially with the introduction of the Overwatch League. So who knows? Last year, South Korea did bleed, and this could be the year that someone actually beats them, because they did drop a map in each of their series, which is important to note, because they dropped 2 to United States, dropped a map to France, and then they also dropped a map to Canada in the Grand Finals. So it was not as clean in regards to the execution as it had been in years past. So it wasn't like, oh, they just like steamrolled everyone. No, that wasn't the case. So I don't know. I just had this feeling like, regardless of who they field, like it could be a situation where, with that skill gap getting so razor thin now, someone's going to be able to topple them.
I agree. I think their visibility constantly playing with the Americans and the other countries. I think that their plateau, gets brought down a little bit. It's just they're still on top. I mean, I can't deny that, but I mean they're coming down just a little bit.
Absolutely. So let's go ahead and move over into what everyone is talking about in our hot community topics. So first up, our dad and savior, Papa Jeffy Cap.
Praise him.
Recently sat down for an interview with the BuzzFeed of the gaming journalist industry, that being Kotaku. I mean, I don't know how else to introduce them. That's basically what they are. They are the BuzzFeed of game sites. But what were they talking about? They were talking about one of the more hot community topics, that being role queues, just in gaming and in general. So a role queue would allow players to select a role that they would like to play, whether that's tank, support, or DPS, because that's kind of like how it is in World of Warcraft with the group finder. And, it makes you commit to playing a hero of that type. And, a lot of the fans have been wanted something like this within Overwatch itself. Now, Kaplan did note that the team has discussed the possibility of implementing a role queue, but that kind of mechanic, he doesn't think that's right for Overwatch, basically. He commented that, he kind of looked at the group finder for a while. He says, the issue I have with it right now, which we would run into if we're not careful, is that tanks and healers would get matched just like that. It's basically like an instant queue. Anyone that's played Warcraft would know that, and I don't think that's what people are expecting right now. But, like, if you're a DPS, you'd basically be waiting, like, up to 30 minutes. Sometimes even longer, because I've seen DPS queues in Warcraft, range anywhere from, like, 45 minutes to, like, 2.5 hours. It gets pretty absurd. And he basically says, like, they want to be careful. That's basically what it is. So, when we're talking about a role queue, I think you have to look at, like, okay, well, the game right now is looking for more incentive to group players together. They need to have a way to get people to, join up with others, do a 6-sec or whatever, it can be anywhere from 2 to 6 people. So, kind of with that in mind, like, what do you think they could implement to kind of, like, bring that to the forefront? Are you expecting Overwatch at some point to get, like, a clan-type system where players are able to meet up and just group together? Because, like, guild systems, like, across the board in MMOs or MMO FPS games have that clan-type system. We've seen it in Destiny, which is probably the closest thing we can compare it to in regards to FPS, at least with Blizzard, since, Activision Blizzard. But, like, right now, there's really not that much incentive outside of, like, okay, you can get, like, 20%, like, bonus XP if you're a group to someone, and that's pretty much where it ends at that point.
Clan rankings are the incentive here. And they've had this for years. For 20 years in first-person shooter gaming and third-person shooter gaming, you've had clan rankings. I mean, game battles, the old game tracker that you used to sign up for, I used to be a SOCOM player, and we used to operate there. It was the clan ranking that we were interested in, right? It was not necessarily native to the game, but it was something that was created outside of it. It was eventually incorporated into that game. And the clan ranking mattered. That will be how they implement this, and it's successful. You say, you have 30 people in a clan that you can have at any given time. This gives you the opportunity to have enough people on for subs, or to be able to get a game going at any given time. And whenever you are queuing, if you're queuing, I would say also you'd probably have to implement something like team or group queues as well, like a group queue ranking. So whenever you queue as that group, you're now putting your clan's SR on the line. And it's not just you. And so not only are you creating the reason to have a clan system and a clan ranking system, but now you're also building your communities together, where whenever you go into that battle, here you are with, the weight of your clan on your back, and that's what you're taking in. That's your honor. That's your valor, right? Like, that's you going into competitive mode for something to play with, and not to just go in and throw, right? Like, it fixes a lot if you do something like that. I don't know. I like it, obviously.
Yeah, and even if they don't kind of go that route with, like, a clan, like, ranking, basically, they could always go the route of, like, doing, like, quests too, in the sense that, like, maybe as a clan you're trying to get, like, X eliminations with a certain hero, or just win X amount of games, kind of like they already do with the arena, to, just unlock more stuff as, individuals and also as a clan. But I think a lot of people are wanting a clan system. I think it is pretty long overdue. We've seen it pop up in some of their other titles. I mean, guilds have been around for the longest time in World of Warcraft. I know in Heroes of the Storm, they have like the team league and things like that, but like they also have it where, if you group up with more than one person, you're getting like an additive bonus for that XP boost as well. So, that could be another thing that we do see. But I feel like we need something else outside of just an XP boost because, 20%, yeah, I mean, it helps, but it doesn't really, like, it's not, like, really speeding up the process to a point where it's like, oh my god, I'm gonna get, like, 20 loot boxes tonight if I just keep queuing competitive or whatever. So, I don't know, but I think a clan system is probably going to be something that they are going to look at more thoroughly here in the future. Who knows? Maybe we might get something like that for BlizzCon this year, or even replays,
nice.
something like that. We need replays. I was calling for it last year. We need it this year. Blizzard, make it happen. That's just something that needs to be going down. But
Papa Jeffy here, totem. He speaks the truth.
Yeah, I mean, he noticed us last year in the stands in the World Cup arena. So hear me now, Papa Jeffy Cap, praise him. But, speaking of our dad and savior, he also made a comment about the upcoming Symmetra rework. And he did give us an ETA. It says it's going to be dropping sometime this summer. So, this has been something that we've been talking about for a while. Like, they haven't really known, like, what direction they are going to take. But with his post, we did see a snippet of what could potentially be. Because he did post an image that kind of teased how her kit could be changing here. And, it is worth noting, like, Symmetra right now is one of the least played heroes in the game. Both at a high level, whether that is on the competitive ladder or in the pro scene. Symmetra is the only hero that hasn't been picked in the Overwatch League outside of, like, the spawn room and people just messing around, destroying books and whatnot before the game even starts, so you can't really count that. But the image that was showed was a card that was displaying a number of players teleported and also the teleporter uptime. So, this would definitely lead us to believe that her teleport ability is going to see some change, maybe even become a cooldown type ability, kind of like what they did with Mercy's Resurrect. But I just want to get your thoughts on Symmetra in her current iteration, and, what direction you think they are going to give to Symmetra, because we know it's going to be, like, a fairly decent overhaul to her kit.
Well, I'm not entirely positive, really, what more you would do unless you're going to take away Shield Generator, which is a wildly frustrating device to be able to put up in the backlines where it's completely defended and it's hard to get to. Mm-hmm. But a cooldown teleporter would be interesting. I mean, a 30 or 40 second cooldown teleporter, kind of like the Mercy Res. Unfortunately, if you teamed those two up together, then you're potentially getting 2 reses every 30 seconds, and that would be interestingly hard, I think. But I think it would be really cool. I would like something like that, or like you put it up in case someone dies, but there's only one left. Maybe it would operate like a Junkrat mine. That would be kind of cool. Use one, have one for later. God, that would be horrible, wouldn't it? That would be just absolutely terrible. Oh, maybe Symmetra and Torb could just leave the game.
I mean, that would just be asking all the one tricks to just stop playing, which is
I know,
not
right?
Happening. I mean, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if there's an avoid his teammate feature, because a lot of these players do it more than one account. And even so, I mean, everyone's not all going to avoid the same player, so they're gonna get through the cracks one way or another. But like, if this does become a cooldown ability, I wonder if they're also going to tweak the amount of teleports per use, basically, because right now
probably
it's at,
one,
like, 6 at this point.
Yeah, I think it would have to be like 1. They would have to mimic Mercy on that, right? They took Mercy from 6 to 1, and then gave her a quick cooldown that let her drop heal twice or res twice, and they obviously pulled all that back, but. Yeah, I think that if they were to change it would have to mimic that. Otherwise, it would be an unfair nerf, or less of a nerf. It wouldn't be appropriately comparable, I don't think.
Yeah, it does seem like that they don't want Symmetra to really be a support. She's more like that defensive type hero. I would love to see something like I don't. I'm sure you've seen the Resident Evil movie. There's like these laser grids that like move forward. I would love to see Symmetra get something like that with her turrets, where it's just like a waffle cone, basically.
I'd like to see her be able to throw her turrets rather than have to be within a range to place them. I would like to like think May's Blizzard, the way she can throw it out.
Right.
So throw it out to but it will stick on a wall, or it will stick wherever it lands. Or think Symmetra's translocator, like wherever you throw it, it lands, it activates. I think it would be really neat to see a Symmetra be able to throw one over and like get one on the side of the bus in Numbani, so you know if they're coming around the corner without having to run all the way around there and throw one. But you can kind of on the fly check and see if somebody's there, if you use it as a tripwire, for instance.
Yeah, so it'd basically be like a scouting tool, and plus it would be another way to potentially get some early ult charge rather than just, leaving all of your turrets like right outside a spawn door, which like
exactly
is what we normally see right now.
And it gives you information in a game that is designed about information, right? Like it tells you more. So I think it would change the landscape of a game. You said the word scout. I had not really even thought about that, but I mean, Overwatch doesn't have a scout. Think about that. I mean, we have Sombra.
Sombra is probably the closest thing.
Tracer's probably number 2 because you can get in the backline, but you're seen. You can't really. I mean, that's an interesting concept, maybe. Yeah.
I don't know. I want to see a scout with laser beams like that. That would be a little frightening. but who knows?
Like a ninja with double swords on its arms.
Yeah, I'll pass. But who knows? Like, I'm sure we're going to be hearing more about this pretty soon. It looks like we are going to be still like a couple months out before we do see this hit the PTR. Obviously, we got a couple other things in the PTR first, like the event map, which is going to be in the rotation even after the event, which is important to note because that will be a new payload map. But speaking of the event, obviously we have the new seasonal event that is bringing a new brawl for Retribution. And that's really been like, it's really brought a lot of people back into the game. There's been a lot of people talking about it. There's been a lot of people playing it. I've seen a bunch of people kind of like logging in that haven't been on in quite some time. And of course, new skins and everything brings, people back because they want the new hotness. Just like people and Brigitte on Pornhub. So, looking at the event skins, we got quite a few legendary skins. We got a Talon Doomfist, we have Sion Hanzo, Equalizer Lucio, Pajame, Blackwatch Moira Soldier 24, which is Reaper. We got Talon Sombra, and Specimen 28 for Winston. So, kind of looking at these, Gabe, I want to get your thoughts. Like, what is your favorite one out of the current crop of the legendary skins from this event?
So, not to be like, I don't know, maybe nobody else thinks this way. I think Winston's probably one of the cooler ones of them. I think seeing that more gritty, very early on, version of his suit, it kind of reminds me of seeing like the early Tony Stark suits, right? So I really like that part. Symmetra, it's not Symmetra. Sombra's is obviously hot. Oh my god, hot. I wish I had LED pants. And in a very real way, I think that Hanzo looks like a pool shark. There's no other real. I just think he's gonna walk into a smoky bar and just go run some jerk off of a pool table, and then like take his money, potentially his girl, probably his car, and then just bail out. I just think that's what's gonna happen with the way he looks. It's just ridiculous, but.
Yeah, I remember when they leaked the Hanzo skin, and Twitter just blew up. And then the next day we saw the new Sombra skin, and then it was just an even bigger blow up, basically. But I have to say, like, out of the Sombra skins, I don't know who's doing, like, the hair design on her legendary skins, but her hair with her legendary skins is absolutely ridiculous. And, my favorite part of that skin is actually the weapon aspect of it, because that skin design for the weapon in itself is really nice, and we really don't get to see that sort of like love in regards to just the weapons in general. But I do really like the Lucio one. I cannot wait to see someone try to incorporate the LEDs into a cosplay. I think that would look really cool. But I was happy to finally see the Pajama May come out. But
Pajama.
Yeah, Pajama. I mean, I'm not gonna say it like that. I mean, there's already too much planned words when it comes to May. I mean, let's be real here. But all in all, like by far,
gonna be May.
By far, Sombra for the Talon one is my favorite one out of the lot, but the Hanzo one is a close second, which is weird because like I harp on Hanzo all of the time. I am not a Hanzo player. You know, neither is Slambo. Slambo is notorious for also being a terrible Hanzo, as am I. And who knows, maybe with that that rework coming up, I might be a little bit worse with Hanzo. I don't know. But that one is pretty cool. We also did get some new Highland intros. We got a Zarya Graviton Surge one. There's a Doomfist one where he, like, goes for his combo where he does, like, the uppercut into the Rocket Punch. And there's one with Orisa with her immovable shield. But we did get a really cool victory pose for Orisa, and that is a puppy one. And I know the internet was just gushing all over that. I'm sure you probably saw that as well.
Yeah. Yeah, the puppies. Everybody loves them. Friggin' puppies.
All right. Well, again, guys, you know, Retribution did bring up, you know, a new PvE brawl. And, you know, this has been kind of like one of the things. Like, everyone is like wanting, okay, well, are you guys going to do a single player campaign? Is it going to be a story mode? And Retribution, which is a new brawl, basically is headed up by Blackwatch. So, you know, you have a team of McCree, Genji, Moira, and Gabriel Reyes, aka Reaper, before he, you know, turns bad. Spoilers, it kind of happens during this. But basically, like, you play as Blackwatch, and you're in a fight for survival against forces of Talon. And, you know, there's, like, different archetypes of mobs, which are pretty cool. The assassin chick with, like, the dual blades is my favorite of the lot out of those. But, you know, PvE content has been heralded by the community. People want more PvE content. So, with that in mind, you know, do you think at some point we'll see a spin-off of sorts, whether that is a campaign mode or a story mode or just a separate game altogether? Is there room for PvE content in Overwatch outside of what we're currently getting with the events?
I don't think so, actually. And I think that it is by design of the, well, by their current design at least, I think it's the best thing that they could be doing. You said it yourself. They drop new content, and people that haven't played the game in months drop what they are doing, and they sit down and log in. And I think that if you had that available all year long, that they wouldn't. And it's proven by how fast our gaming cycle is. Think about what was popular last year. What games were popular? I mean, has Overwatch gotten more or less popular? Has it kind of stayed the same? What times is it more and less popular? But what other games have come and gone since then? Our gaming cycle around us, it's 6 to 8 months in most games, 18 months for the majority. And outside of that, if you get 2 years fully, you're pretty lucky. Mm-hmm. That's why Call of Duty has so many iterations, because they had to change something, update something, make it shiny, at least tell them that it was shiny. You know, even if it was the exact same game, which they did multiple times. And people still bought it because of the idea that it was something new. So Overwatch, without having to create a new game and to update all of their mechanics, they are dropping yearly content lore, 4 characters a year, shorts, comics, lore events. I mean, we almost feel like the PvE is what we're looking for, but we're not. Like, we're really looking for the lore. I mean, there's people that are looking for the tower defense, but the tower defense or the brawl, you'll complete that and you'll be done with it in 4 or 5 hours if you play it hardcore, and that's the only thing you had. So I don't know. I don't think that the community can handle that for the longevity of the game if you had it all year round and all of the time. I love the way they do it now. I literally look forward to it every year. We know we're going to get something new. Mm-hmm. Now we know that the content's going to stay coming back every single year. So my wife, who didn't get the opportunity to play the event last year, she got to see that event and then go into the new event. You know, I mean, this is a phenomenal way of doing that, and we get to look forward to it again next year. So there's just no negative to it, honestly. Just stay the course.
Yeah, and when the stuff does go away, you know, it brings in that anticipation of when the next one is going to happen. And with archives, you know, they've kind of set it up where, you know, each year we're going to be looking at a different mission, you know, from Overwatch's past. And, you know, this one was a lot more lore focused, kind of like the first one was, because the first one followed, you know, Tracer's, like, first mission, basically. And this one, you know, focusing on Reaper's, transcendence into, evil, I guess is the best way to put it, because he does do something pretty drastic. But, you know, I like PvE content, but I feel like I don't think, like, going to StarCraft 2 route of saying, okay, we're gonna release, like, mission packs is the way to go. Yes, you know, it's a good way to make money, but they're still gonna be raking in the money even doing it this way in a smaller cycle, because, you know, what happens when a new event comes out? There's a lot of people out there right now that will just, you know, throw their money at the screen and buy a giant loot box bundle. And then there you go. That pretty much makes up for any sort of, like, 2 or 3 sales that you would have got if you were, like, to release it as, like a mission pack or something like that. And really, like, at its core, Overwatch is a PvP game. It's always 6v6. But, you know, this is just, it's something, it's kind of like a love letter for the community, because the community wants it, but this is enough to whet the appetite. Whether or not they expand on it, probably not, but I feel like leaving it in the game is just going to... People are just going to get tired of it. You can have too much of a good thing. As crazy as it is for some people to understand, it is the absolute truth. And their goal, as Kaplan said, is for the Overwatch universe to transcend Overwatch. And, you know, they can do that even by just doing, you know, 1 new mission a year. You know, expanding the lore further. And I think, you know, what we saw this year was huge, because, you know, we got an in-game cinematic for this event, which was absolutely crazy. You know, the cinematic work by Blizzard has always been one of their, you know, best qualities outside of, you know, the community, because, I mean, let's be real, we wouldn't be here without the community, but we also wouldn't be here without the games, and the cinematic work is always top-notch, and, you know, we gotta see it really help, you know, bring Reaper into the forefront with his, you know, kind of backstory, and, you know, the decision that he made that kind of, you know, made him change who he was as a person, because he saw, like, things weren't working for, you know, the way that Overwatch wanted to deal with things. So what did he do? He basically, you know, just assassinates the guy with his Hellfire shotguns, and, you know, shit just hits a fan at that point. But I love little events like this, and if we keep getting it just in small doses, I think that is the best course to take for Overwatch. I don't want a campaign. I'm not gonna say, like, that wouldn't be cool, but I feel like that would basically, like, divert way too many resources in order to make that, when we're getting a constant flow of content as is. So I don't know, like, why there's such a big mix-up when it comes to people wanting this, you know, content, you know, full-time.
Yeah, like I said, they're doing such a good job of keeping us coming back. Even people that haven't played, don't even want to play the game anymore. And keeping in mind that PvP content side of this isn't even really all of it. Like, there's people that cosplay, just want to know the lore, right? All of this stuff does great things for them. It gives them different looks as well. So that's really awesome. I think getting it in small spurts is the best way to go again. I mean, I just can't agree more with that. It's my favorite time of year. It's more like Christmas than Christmas.
Absolutely.
At least in Overwatch.
All right, well, you know, just speaking of the Brawl, you know, I'm sure you've played it by now. I know I definitely have. I haven't tried it on Legendary yet. I'm sure that is a pain in the ass, just based off of everything I keep hearing, and I know there are some guides out there, but based on your experience, like, do you have any tips out there for our listeners on how to just, like, prepare, whether it's, like, hero-specific, or how to deal with some of the mob archetypes that you will see in the Brawl? I don't know if it cut out. But, okay, so looking at the Brawl, though, like, we've seen, like, some new mobs, right? We've seen the Assassin. So, you know, to start off, like, one of the things that a lot of people don't know is you can go in and you could punch the Assassin, basically, like, melee her, to knock them off of an ally. You know, a lot of people just are, like, just sitting there, basically, not knowing what to do. Right. Or they just try to heal through with the damage, basically. So that's one thing you could do. You could also, like, bait the Assassin when it comes to the attack. I don't know if she basically, like, attacks the person that's closest to her, but what you can do is each hero that you can be for Blackwatch has a way to do this. So what you want to do is you want to wait for the assassin to dash in your general direction, and if you're Reaper or Moira, you can just hit your shift ability, and voila, she gets confused. Genji can also do the same thing by using his dash during the charge, and the same goes for McCree using his combat role if he's the one to get in charge. So there's ways to kind of like disorient the assassin who, if you play the Brawl, you'll know like the assassin like blinks around all over the place in like quick succession. It's kind of annoying.
Isn't she kind of like, isn't like musical chairs, right? Like she just kind of has her routine, and whoever she's closest to, whenever her routine is finished, that's who she's on.
That's what it seems like.
Yeah, I felt like that's what it was when we were playing the other night. The best thing we saw was as soon as you are able to get away, Moira, Reaper, and McCree scatter as fast as possible, and then they come back in, and you do the flashbang, you heal the character that was getting wrecked, and go about your business. That was the successful piece every single time. So, yeah.
Yeah, there are also some things that you can do with the ultimates when it comes to mini-bosses. So, with the mini-bosses, there is an animation. So, like, let's say you're playing Genji. If you pop your Dragon Blade before that animation for the boss, and there's a few seconds left on it, when the animation starts, that ultimate is going to be refunded to you. So, this works for Moira as well, which is important to note. And, kind of looking at some of the other things, like, there are those heavies. I can't remember the exact name of them in the game. You'll know which ones I'm talking about. They're the ones that do, basically, the majority of the damage when it comes to this Brawl in itself. But what you want to do with those mobs is you want to bait a charge out of them so that they bump into a wall. Because when they charge into a wall, what ends up happening is they get stunned on impact. So, think kind of like Doomfist, basically, with a rocket punch. You always want to make sure that you're hitting something with, the character's back to like a wall or a poster, whatever. But, there's also, like, Reaper. Like, Reaper, when it comes to this, if someone does die, you are able to revive teammates, and Reaper can actually revive even when he's in his Wraith form. So, if you're under heavy fire and someone is needing a res and that Reaper's nearby, he could just, click his shift and, he'll be good to go. But, I haven't really seen too many other things. I haven't really done the Alt Heroes version of it, but I do know Ana can actually sleep the sniper to prevent her from even joining a fight from that dropship. So, if you're doing that mode in particular, Ana might be the route to go. But all in all, though, like, I really don't have that many more takeaways. I know when I was playing Genji, kind of looking at the guys that do the charge shot, I was basically just trying to save my deflect anytime he was going to use an ability, just to get a quicker charge of my Dragon Blade. So that's important to note too. But all in all, like, I've been thoroughly enjoying this Brawl. I'm not gonna say like I enjoy it more than Junkenstein, because Junkenstein still is probably my favorite.
It is king.
Event.
Junkenstein is king.
But is there really like anything else in regards to the heroes that you might want to touch light on in regards to the event?
I agree with all of the ult charge conversation pieces. I think that Genji's Dragon Blade is premium on the bosses. Absolutely premium. Especially the first double bastion armed guy. He falls pretty quickly when you have your team focusing and you have Genji on top of it. He just does so much damage. It's really fantastic. Also, don't neglect the dash. Just you forget about it, but these characters that you're fighting is like they're taking equal damage from 3 other people. When you dash through, you're probably going to kill 1 or 2 of them. And remember, the dash resets on the kills for everyone that forgets that doesn't play Genji very often and is going to get forced into this. Because remember, like, there's a lot of people that just it's outside of them. Hi, me. So, remembering the dash was really important, and getting that, getting those kills and helping the team, we were able to progress easier that way too. So,
yeah, and for me, like, when I look at the 4 heroes, I honestly, out of the 4, like, the only one I really play is Moira. So, like, there's been a lot of times where I'm having to DPS, whether it is on my Weeb Genji or the McCree. And, out of the lot, like, McCree's actually been my better pick between the 4 heroes, which I thought was interesting because I was kind of, like, looking at my accuracy and my, like, alt charge rate when it comes to Genji and McCree because, I'm alright at Reaper, but I was playing with Softy, who is a much better Reaper player than I am. So it was really like, okay, do I play Genji, who I know I'm terrible with, or do I play McCree, who I might slightly be better at? But what I found is, like, when it comes to McCree, my accuracy was actually through the roof compared to Genji. Because I was averaging about 60% weapon accuracy with McCree, which paid huge dividends as opposed to trying to heavily focus on dash resets with the Genji. Because, like, my accuracy wasn't quite there, but I was doing enough deflections with his ability to get enough Dragon Blades to make it, like, really worth my while. But McCree definitely was my bread and butter for this event, and I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. So McCree is probably going to be the person I try to auto-lock outside of Moira if we do need a healer.
Let's just remind the people that are going to play Moira that there are 2 ways to play her, but there's only one right way, and that even applies to the Brawl. Keep your team alive. Heal them. If you are top damage, top kills in the Brawl, your team is dead. Don't do that. Just gonna say it. That's all I'm saying.
Absolutely. And, you know, speaking of things that you should not do, you know, we had to talk about one of the bigger news coming out of the Overwatch League as we go inside the league. So, you know, Overwatch League has had its fair share of criticism in regards to some of the drama. And this one by far takes the cake. So, the Boston Uprising have had to terminate a player's contract, that being Dream Casper. And this had happened following a suspension that was due to allegations of sexual harassment of a minor. The first person that, you know, stepped up was a 14-year-old, and she basically had posted basically like some messages that were sent between her and Dream Casper. This was back on Sunday. And he's been like sending messages through Snapchat, through FaceTime, Twitter DMs, things like that. And she basically posted like this very like detailed documentation of the relationship that the two of them had. And basically, like, she said that, you know, he had used his social status to blind to take advantage of me, and, you know, she did say, like, she did send DK some inappropriate photos, and in California, where Dream Casper was residing, because he was competing in the Overwatch League, you know, the possession of child pornography is a felony, and since then, there was a second person that did step forward, this one a 16-year-old girl, and, you know, it's been kind of growing since that. So Dream Casper, I know I'm not sure if he's been charged yet, but last time I checked, he hadn't been charged with a crime. But this is still a story that is in development, and, you know, it's really put Boston in a bind. And I know one of the websites that was offering player jerseys was actually offering people refunds if they did purchase a Dream Casper jersey from them. I want to say it was like in the AM, if I'm not mistaken. So if you have a Dream Casper jersey, you are able to get a refund and, you know, pick up a new jersey for someone else. Whether it's on that team or not is completely up to you. But, like, really, we've gone through, like, these different stages of Overwatch League, both in the league itself and kind of, like, in regards to the punishments and the things, like, the stupid crap that these players are doing. And, you know, you and I talked a little bit before the show, and a lot of these players that are in the Overwatch League are young and stupid. A lot of them are 18, maybe 19 or 20 years old. A lot of them probably haven't held a job since, you know, pursuing their career as a pro gamer, which, you know, it's a great thing. Like, you're actually able to do that now, but that's kind of besides the point. But a lot of people just don't know how to handle themselves in that professional environment. And, you know, I hate to see things escalate to this extent because it does leave kind of a black mark on the Overwatch League, and that's not something that the league needs right now, just because, you know, the league still is in its infancy, still being, you know, the first season. So all eyes are on the Overwatch League, and when something like this happens, then it really, you know, it puts a damper on the mood, really. I mean, I really don't know what else to say because I've had to cover this multiple times this week, but I want to get your thoughts. Like, what was going through your head when you found out about, like, these allegations that, you know, I mean, there's enough evidence, like, to say, like, oh yeah, this is beyond allegations at this point.
I mean, initially, right, like, you're just like, all right, here we are, right? Like, I mean, like, in the society that we currently live in and the media cycles that we currently live in, like, this was just more of a just not something that you'd ever want to see in something that you love, and here we are with it. And I guess in retrospect, looking back, I I think I have to kind of agree with your perspective here. Like, maybe it shouldn't necessarily be as surprising. You have individuals that are probably not huge into the social world, of being popular, and maybe they had enough money to be able to be very leisurely or have high-end gaming computers to be able to play, or whatever else. And I'm applying values for hypotheticals, and obviously not anything that I know, but this is you're dealing with people that haven't had a lot of opportunity to be famous, and then all of a sudden they're famous. They didn't have they didn't go through high school. They didn't go through college, in their sport. They didn't end up in the pros through, after going through some type of a combine or anything. They came from Twitch, and they came from random leagues that just got kind of spawned off of something existing. And so they were thrust into the limelight, and then all of a sudden individuals that have never experienced this type of fame or exposure or interest in any way, shape, form, or fashion have all of these people that are just absolutely, enthralled with their existence and inundating them with praise and adoration and admiration, and hi, this is me. And with Twitch and with Twitter and Facebook and all of the social media that we have the ability to come in contact with these individuals in a way that even professional athletes today don't interact with their fans in the same capacity, in showing off every single moment of their training on video, talking to us while they're doing it, telling us how to get good at it. And so Facebook. So the really neat thing that I thought that we should take away from this at the very beginning was, at least Blizzard is jumping on this. And in all of the scandals and all of the drama that's happened in the past few weeks and months, you can make a case that maybe they haven't taken the appropriate steps. I mean, you got to think that Overwatch League is in its infancy. We talked about this earlier. This is over a decade and a half's culmination of work, in the last 2 years to now have these faces, be the face of the company, of Activision, of Blizzard, of the Overwatch community, of the game, of the characters that they play. I mean, it's Jake Rat, not Junkrat, right? And so we see that, and it really is a conversation about what Blizzard needs to be doing to protect their brand in the most important way. Maybe they've done a good job at this. Maybe they haven't. Maybe they're trying to now. At least they got on it. So initially, that's kind of where I land with the majority of this. But ultimately, I think it would be awesome to see Blizzard really take that step forward and start providing some type of life coaching for these individuals that all of a sudden just are finding themselves in a place that they don't really have the ability to cope with. They've never had that given to them in social context. So I don't know. It would be really cool if Blizzard stood up and took care of their players and their coaches and their teams as a part of their company for the viability of their brand. And I don't mean to make it commercialist, but I mean, ultimately, like, this is where that's going to come from. And they're hurting themselves, they're hurting their brand, they're hurting Blizzard, they're hurting Blizzard's brand, they're hurting Overwatch, they're hurting the community. Whenever these scandals happen, and it can be easily prevented by giving some people just a little bit of direction and a little bit of work ethic. And because work ethic doesn't just apply to the 9 to 5, right? Like, it applies to what you do when you leave, and how you carry yourself, and how that translates to your job. I mean, like, it's an everlasting cycle of very serious conversations about who you are, what you're doing, who you represent. So
yeah, and with DK kind of out of the picture, that did give an opportunity to another player out there. And at least on a Boston lineup, it was mistakes that really stepped in today. And guys, if you're listening to us live, maybe you've been paying attention to the Overwatch League games. Boston, that was actually playing their first game of this week, going up against New York Excelsior, who had only dropped 2 games throughout the season so far in the Overwatch League. Both happened to be against London, And Boston, with mistakes in the lineup, taking that second DPS spot alongside Striker, actually took, New York Excelsior to a Met 5, and they won that series 3-2. So Boston, coming out, throughout all of this drama because of Dreamcast. So, I was enthused to see Mistakes get an opportunity. It sucks that it had to happen because of something to that extent, but he made the most of the situation, and, Boston's winning streak is continuing, so that is important to note. And speaking of Boston, they did make another signing. This was during the signing window, so they actually kind of held off to announce it, but this was a pickup that they did do before the deadline finished, and actually picked up a player out of Contenders Korea. This one being AimGod, who had played for Metabellum, and that brings that Uprising roster back up to 10 players. Now, the thing that's interesting about this is the fact that it is a support player, and if you've looked at their roster, they already kind of have 4 support players. So if you factor in AimGod, that would mean half of their team in its current iteration are support players. So, what's important to note here is the fact that on the Overwatch League website, they actually have AimGod listed as the DPS. And this is a player that has played on some of the bigger Tier 2 teams in the past in Korea. He was on Ardiant, who has been just rolling through a lot of people in Apex Challengers in the past, before he was signed by Metabellum, which is Meta Athena's sister-type team. And he's primarily been playing Zenyatta and Ana in Contenders for Metabellum. Now, the question that is on my mind is, regardless of what he's listed as on the websites, why pick up another support player? Is one of them going to swap to the DPS role? I mean, it could be AimGod. Are they preparing for what they're predicting to be a heavier support meta when Brigitte does enter the fold in Stage 4? What's going on here? Why would you want, half of your team to be on one role specific? That seems a bit overkill.
So, if it were me, I would like to have said rather that they were waiting to trade their really good healing cards to someone else for a good DPS, but since trades are out and that's not possible, I really have no idea what they're doing. Ultimately, I would like to agree with. I would like to think that what you have proposed is the appropriate idea. I think that they are in scrims. They're playing a Rhine, D.Va, Brigitte, Moira, Zenyatta, and then some random DPS, single DPS. And they're going to attempt to invent a new type of death ball that we don't know how to play better than that. And that they will do something amazing with that scenario. It's the only thing I can think of. I literally have no idea why you would want to have that much support.
Right.
But maybe somebody's been hiding. They've been, having alt accounts squirreled away somewhere, playing Tracer all day long. Rod Johnson, are you playing in the Overwatch League?
No.
Nope.
I've seen this Tracer play. He's definitely not in the Overwatch League.
Oh.
If the game night is
Rod.
any indicator,
I love Rod so much.
I'm well aware of his ability.
He's so much fun. He's the best. He's so great. Anyway, but for real, maybe somebody really has just been super practicing it behind the scenes to really get better or get good at some type of DPS to fill a role in a way that no one else is preparing for. I have no hope for this one.
Yeah, and what's interesting about this is, kind of going into the Overwatch League, a lot of people looked at Boston and their lineup, and it was, a bunch of teams that were on, a bunch of players that were on lesser teams, really not well-known players, and then you had other teams that basically had signed full rosters or signed some of the better free agents that were out there, and then Boston just kind of comes in and gets underestimated from the get-go. Everyone was pegging them as, okay, this is a team that's probably going to be 10th, maybe 11th place in a grander scheme of things, and here they are, putting a win streak together, and while they haven't broke through into the playoffs, they've definitely been one of those teams that's been kind of on the cusp of actually making the playoffs. So, I don't want to be well, I don't know what the heck is going on here, it makes no sense, but what I will say is, we've seen so many teams out there get backups for the different roles, and for whatever reason, Boston has decided, okay, we're going to have 4-5 support players. Is that the right move? Probably not. Can it work out? It could. You know, they could be scrimming something different. I would hope that they're preparing for a 3 support meta if that is the way it's gonna go, but like that seems like a huge gamble to like bank on something like that if we don't know if that's gonna be something that's gonna be set in stone. So like they need another tank, they need another DPS to have someone on that backup role. So just in case something does happen to someone, whether it is someone coming down with the flu, which we've seen affect Fisher this week for the LA Gladiators, or like a wrist injury like Zunba from Soul Dynasty that he's dealing with, they need someone to fill into that role, and right now they don't really have that backup. So that's really like the thing that's like taking me off guard about this. But who knows, maybe Boston sees something that I don't, just like they saw something that none of us saw when we were first looking at this team. I don't know, it's crazy. But if he is going to be a DPS player, like what DPS is he going to pick up? Because you look at Zenyatta, you look at Ana. I mean, Ana doesn't always necessarily translate to Widowmaker. And, you know, Dreamcasper was a Widowmaker at the time, and Mistakes, you know, today pulled out the Widowmaker and looked damn good. And, you know, you could say Tracer, but the Mistakes and Striker both play Tracer at a very good level. So, you know, in the past, that support DPS spot was more, okay, well, Sombra in her older iteration, not the current one, because that's going to an actual DPS player now. And then really outside of that, you know, we've seen, like, really, like, obscure, like, team compositions coming out from LA Gladiators where they have a DPS playing a Lucio and, like, someone else playing the Tracer or Sombra. But that's not really an option based on what Boston is doing. So really, like, that leaves, like, Soldier 76, I think, is the only viable option. And, you know, he hasn't had, like, the best success in the current meta, so it seems like too niche of a pick to really be like, okay, we're gonna bring you in. So hopefully AimGod is gonna have something up his sleeves that we just haven't seen yet. What it is, I don't know. So I don't know. It's very peculiar though. It's got a lot of people talking and a lot of people kind of like raising their eyebrows because no one knows quite what to make of this. All right, well, moving on, you know, we do have some more Overwatch League gear that did hit the stores. And, you know, this does include team gear. They are offering new jackets, like leggings. They got new shirts. They got socks. And, you know, I don't know if you've got a chance to look at this, but there's some pretty nice stuff in here. They have, like, these performance jackets for each team. They cost a whopping $120, which, whew, pretty steep. I mean, they look fantastic.
But I bet they're made of quality.
I'm sure they are. They look absolutely fantastic, but for that price, I'd rather just pick up 2 jerseys. I don't know about you, but they have leggings that are $45. Their long sleeve shirts are $38, and the socks are $20. So that's.
I mean, maybe I'd go for the leggings and the hoodie. Yeah, I'm down with that. Right on. But the hoodie, though, like I don't know, maybe. Can you really put a price on being comfortable and looking good? Being nice and warm and looking just absolutely amazing? I mean, come on. Seriously.
Well, if you live in California, you're not going to need a jacket. You're not going to need to shell out $120 for one. Well, okay, yeah, I take that back because when I'm at BlizzCon in November, all of my Californian friends are like complaining when it drops like 50 degrees in the evening, and I'm from Chicago, so like I'm used to the winter here, and then I just laugh at them. So I bring like additional like hoodies with me when I go to BlizzCon because I know they're just going to complain. So who knows? Maybe they do need a jacket, but are they willing to spend $120 on one of these? Probably not.
What's your level of devotion to Overwatch? Huh? But how much do you really love Overwatch? Enough for a $120 hoodie. That's how much.
I mean, that's a lot less than what I've spent on loot boxes. That's for damn sure.
See? And that's just digital. You don't even get to wear it.
That is true. But the player icons are kind of like a badge of honor.
Okay, they are. For sure. For sure. I can't disagree with this one.
But, you know, looking at, you know, all the new merch, is there anything that's, like, really standing out to you? Or are you looking at picking up some new swag from the gear store?
I mean, honestly, I think we'll probably pick up a couple of jerseys for sure at some point. I'm a Houston fan. Mostly, I was brought into Houston by Jake, ultimately. I followed him from when he was early on, so get some Houston swag up again. Yeah, for sure.
All right, well, let's go ahead and take a look back at that, first week of Stage 3, because, Stage 3 did kick off. So, going back to Wednesday, we saw the Dallas Fuel 3-1 the Shanghai Dragons. The LA Valiant pulled off an upset against the Seoul Dynasty, sweeping them 4-0, which was a definite shocker.
Crazy game, too.
I'll talk about that later. The San Francisco Shock defeated the LA Gladiators 3-1. On Thursday, we saw New York Excelsior 4-0 the Florida Mayhem. Boston Uprising defeated Philadelphia Fusion 3-2, and your Houston Outlaws defeated the London Spitfire 3-2. Houston continuing to be London's kryptonite, just like London has been Seoul's kryptonite, so it goes both ways. On Friday, we saw LA Gladiators take Dallas Fuel 3-1, the Valiant 4-0 the Shanghai Dragons, and then the Dynasty rebounded, sweeping the Shock 4-0. And to cap off the week on Saturday, we saw the Fusion 3-1 the Mayhem. We saw the Boston Uprising 4-0 the Outlaws, and then the Excelsior 4-0 the Spitfire. So that one not going to a Map 5 like so many people would predict. But
I totally predicted it would go into a Map 5, and I was sorely devastated. I love watching those games. They're so good when they hit 5.
Yeah,
don't know why.
I didn't expect a 4-0 for New York, regardless of how New York has performed, because London always seems to be, going toe-to-toe with them. They might not beat them, but, it is always close. So, that being said, we got a new stage, we got a new map pool, we got a new patch being played, and, as I talked about last week, we got to see Sombra, enter in the fold. And, yeah, I don't know if you got to catch a lot of the games last week, but if you saw the Sombra play, it's been mostly terrible, I would say. Like, I'll be
trying
honest.
to force it. It's not
Right.
It was better when the health packs actually meant something, because then when she was getting the EMP off fast, it wasn't like she was having to go and be super aggressive and get killed and not really get the hack off. And I completely disagree with the force of the meta right now. It's not working for them.
Yeah.
Anyone, actually.
In regards to the people playing the Sombra, there has been, I would say, one standout Sombra player. And that is Dante from the San Francisco Shock. He's a player that has played a ton of Sombra in the past. And, in Sombra's, prior iteration, basically it was a support player playing her. Now, Sombra has kind of taken Genji's spot in the dive meta. So it's a DPS player having to play Sombra. And he's really been the only one to, really lead the charge in regards to the Sombras. There's just been way too many inconsistencies just across the board. And, I mentioned, what the changes were, but just a reminder, so this newer version of Sombra has a quicker cast time on Hack. It cancels more abilities with Hack. Her weapon does less spread, and her Translocator has seen its duration increased. So Sombra playing more of that, lockdown type assassin. Basically, as I've talked about her in the past, it's kind of been a Tracer Light. I mean, they are pretty similar now.
Right.
With her abilities. But the problem is, a lot of these players haven't been forced on it or having a rough go at the new Sombra. It's not a role that they're familiar with. It's not a role or a character that they've really had time to practice on or even scrim on. But we have seen the playtime statistics, at least so far in Stage 3. And it's sitting at, right now, Sombra is being played 24.4% of the time. So, while that's not anywhere near D.Va numbers or Winston, because they are still the go-to tanks in the current meta, that is a pretty significant jump over it was I don't know, 2 or 3. I don't know the exact percentage. It was really low. It was sub 10% for sure, absolutely. But this new Sombra is just a straight DPS character.
Right.
And it's just with so many people struggling with it, I've also been struggling with it, but not for the reason that they're looking terrible with it. It's the fact that I've kind of already gone through this cycle, because, as a podcaster, I do cover the Path to Pro stuff, so I've seen the Sombra cycle affect contenders, and now I've seen it kind of, trickle into the Overwatch League, and it's basically, I'm reliving the past scene. It's like playing a broken record. I saw some teams try to adapt it in contenders. Didn't really work. What happened? They reverted back to run and dive. They started to look a lot better, and then Sombra just kind of disappeared outside of a few select teams that really did have a standout player. I'm expecting kind of the same thing. They'll toy with her a little bit, maybe the first couple of weeks, see whether or not it's gelling or working, and then if it doesn't pan out, then they're going to revert back to their old ways. Now, there are teams out there that just flat out won't play, Sombra. And, the big one that comes to mind is New York Excelsior. This is a team that, despite being on Sombra maps in the past, just refused to run it. They would often go for the Tracer Widow because, they have Libero and Sabiolbi, so they can do that, and they can basically just rest to whatever, but not everyone has that option.
Gods among digital men, yeah, for sure. Those guys.
So, with the change to the way that EMP works, we're seeing the charge rate of EMP not coming up as quickly. Yes, Sombra is being more active in the fights, but, you're not charging it as fast. I can't remember the exact stats. I want to say it was at least, 10 seconds slower right now, but it's still not, a significant amount. Sombras are still getting their EMP up for, quite some time, but do you feel like teams are going to stick to running the Sombra if their results are just this varied, or are they going to, kind of go back to what they've been known for, like the dive compositions that we've seen kind of, throughout Stage 1 and Stage 2?
No, I don't really think that they're going to really stick with this Sombra play. Ultimately, I think it's just kind of a flashy gimmick. She's super powerful, but so easily countered, so easily taken down. Yeah, she can get out of the fight pretty quickly with Translocator, but is that really a substitute? I mean, you can perform all of those same maneuvers with a Tracer. Rewind back to your health. You're not just translocating. Hopefully, you translocated back to the health pack that you hacked 5 seconds ago. And I think that's really the big deal here, right? That's why when New York Excelsior is picking Tracer as opposed to what everyone else says is this is the Sombra map. No, you don't have to do that. You don't have to bend to but this is what everybody else is doing. That's why South Korea has always been so successful in the first place. No, we're gonna do it this way. You should follow what we're doing. And so I see Bob is saying, and she requires a lot more planning, and she does. I mean, you have to build the team around the Sombra. You can't fit the Sombra into a team.
Okay, so I will say this. So since Sombra has taken Genji's role, I'm gonna revert back to what Bob just said. Yes, there's slightly more planning involved, but it's basically you're still having the same dive type setup because you're always looking for that Zenyatta, but you just add on to the fact that Sombra is looking to hack the D.Va, because the D.Va is going to be the one that is going to be causing a havoc with her defense matrix, but I don't think the execution of it is really that much different compared to when you're running the Genji. Yes, it takes a little bit more time to set up, but you're still kind of playing out the fight the same way.
I gotcha. I can agree with that. I think it's not, I mean, for sure. I don't know. I just think that what role she's filling right now is, I don't know, 6 in one hand, half dozen in the other. If you have a better Tracer, you would take the Tracer.
Well, I mean,
if you're struggling,
Tracer.
Right. Well, there's that too. Yeah. True.
Well, speaking of things that are very curious, I mean, we got to talk about the Dynasty and that first series that they had against the Valiant. So, it's no secret I am a hashtag soulmate. I have been a huge Lunatic Hai fan since, they became a thing in the Overwatch scene. And, I kind of miss part of the game because, for whatever reason, they always seem to play during when I'm podcasting, which... Woe is me. That's besides the point. But
you do so much, Totem. You do so much. I mean,
But the thing is, it's I've kind of gone through this these spurts of these very questionable coach decisions being made by the Dynasty. So if I look at how they came out this week in that opening series against the LA Valiant, they fielded Miro and Zephyr on the tank roles. They had Munchkin and Fleta, so they had their two main DPS, and then on the support line, they had Guido and Gambler, who are their backup supports. And, I know Zunba, they confirmed that, he's dealing with a wrist injury. I don't know if that was affecting him earlier in the week. I'm assuming it did. But they didn't field Zunba, they didn't field Ryuji Han, they didn't field Toby. None of them saw a minute of playtime in the series, so they opted to run those same 6 players. And speaking of Sombra, I had been hyping up Fleta's Sombra play, and what did we see in this? We saw him play the Tracer over Munchkin, and Munchkin played the Sombra on the team, and I was so flabbergasted I nearly blew a gasket. But, like, I was just like, I don't understand it, because Fleta has been the one to play the majority of the Sombra time for the Dynasty in the past. And if you're going to field the Tracer and the Sombra together, those roles should have been reversed. There's no reason that Munchkin should have been playing basically Fleta's character at that point. That confused me. So, you kind of have to take a step back. Is this a case of, Seoul is just taking teams too lightly? Has this team just gotten too much into their head, just based off their past success? Because this is a team that has failed to reach the playoffs, despite some very strong openings in both stages so far. And yes, there is an additional spot, which, we were kind of laughing on OWLN, is like, Seoul's chance to make the playoffs now, because, there's 12 teams and 4 spots now, so, it's a little bit better stat-wise, but, like, it's very frustrating to see them not put out an optimal lineup when it comes to them facing a team that, a lot of people would consider to be not as good of a team, but, like, you have to win games that you're supposed to win. You can't be dropping a ton of maps to teams that you should beat on paper, and for them to field Guido, who has been atrocious on Zenyatta, was not the move to make. You need to have at least Toby or Ryo Jae-han in that lineup with Gambler, who was making his debut for this lineup. So, just these little things just irk me. So I don't know what your thoughts on this. I don't know if you have different feelings, but, it's been kind of like a state of confusion with the Dynasty when it comes to their substitutions.
It seems like sometimes that they're really just attempting to make a statement that X's and O's matter more than the players. You should be able to input player to do X role and have success. And that's what it feels like they are trying to say. But the result seems like insanity, like banging your head against the wall trying to break it down. It's not breaking down, but we're going to keep banging our head against the wall anyway. Not entirely positive. It seems like they do all of the right things. They have key players. They have phenomenal strategies. But like you said, it feels like they take their opponents just not seriously enough. Oh, well, we can just do this. We can play. I don't need to play my main. You play my main. I'll play something different. And I know that they're not flippantly saying that, but sometimes it's what it feels like when you're watching it. You see one game and they are on fire. And the next game, they look mediocre. Mm-hmm. You don't even know. You're not even sure you're watching the exact same team, and then you realize you aren't watching the exact same team. Why? I don't know. I think, again, I really think they're just trying to play X's and O's Overwatch instead of playing the personalities. I mean, we've seen teams do that, and when they put their main shot caller back in, they have success again. We saw that in Season 2 with the Outlaws. They didn't play Jake as much. They didn't play as well. And then I felt like, as a fan anyway, like they start playing him more, and in Stage 3, then they started it felt like they were playing more like a team, not necessarily winning, but playing more like that team and really taking accountability for what they're doing. At least that's what it felt like to me, right? So I don't know. Maybe they're doing the same thing. Maybe they'll figure out what their team chemistry should look like. Maybe they're playing chess and we're playing checkers. Who knows?
Feels more like they're trying to play 4D chess and everyone else is playing checkers at this point. But that's beside the point. But like you mentioned the Outlaws, and as an Outlaws fan, your perspective of this team is going to probably be very different than mine. Because Houston is a team that I bring up a lot on Overwatch League Network, as you have probably heard. And for the longest time, Flame has been like, Tracer's not a problem. The players outright say, yeah, we're not that great with the Tracer. But now, like, okay, guys, we finally have made a decision. We have put someone on that Tracer role. We're no longer doing that revolving door between Clockwork, Jake, and Linkser. I'm not going to say Mendo Kusai because he hasn't played at all. He's there. He's also a Tracer player. Hasn't seen play. That's besides the point. But, they have decided that Linkser is going to be the person to specialize on the Tracer role for the Houston Outlaws. Now, we kind of look at, the Stage 3 map pool, and, you mentioned, well, yeah, they didn't really play Jake in Stage 2, and they didn't fare as well. Yes, it is true, but when you compare the map pools from Stage 1 and Stage 2, you had a lot less Junkrat maps in Stage 2. That's not the case in Stage 3. Stage 3 is very similar to what we saw in Stage 1, and sure enough, the Drake Ret is coming out in full force, and we've seen different looks from the Outlaws again, where they kind of like get banging their head on the wall in Stage 2 with the same thing, trying to run the Tracer that just wasn't optimal at the time. Because oftentimes it was either Clockwork or Jake, who were doing alright, they weren't great, but, the stats for their Tracer play had been not quite last. I think it was like 11th overall in most of the categories that are important, but with these Drake Rat maps back into the rotation, we have seen them kind of like revert back to that anti-dive mentality that they had, because they are able to run the Junkrat and their Tracer now, or the Widow, depending on what map they're on. And in the past, that played huge dividends for them in Stage 1, and they were definitely one of the teams that was just right outside, on the outside looking in at that playoff spot. So I'm expecting the Outlaws to have a similar success rate when it comes to their win record in this current stage. Now, that being said, we've talked at length about, the Tracer issues or lack of issues, depending on, who's talking about it in the past, but do you expect to see similar results from the Outlaws when you compare it to, the map pool that we did see in Stage 1, just because there are a lot of similarities just between those two?
Yeah, I think I should always expect A, as a fan, and B, as just trying to kind of be objective about the team that I'm watching. I should expect to see the same type of success. Maybe not the same level of success, but at least the same type of success. The difference here in our perspective when we're talking about it is, like, I don't think it's as much the Junkrat maps as it is Jake being in the comms, right? He is like Linkster. He is a glue character. Like, he's a glue individual. Like Rawkus, like he is the person that keeps them focused. This is what we're doing. At least that's how it feels to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when we saw him out, and we are seeing that it was because of less optimal maps, even if the maps weren't the best for him, when he's on the lineup, he is like the rising tide lifting the ships. Like, maybe he's not performing at his highest level because it's not conducive to his character or to his playstyle at the moment, but his team is uplifted by him being there, right? Like, and this is what having a solid core based team is in the first place. When you look at the NBA, you've got 4 main starters and you've got your 2 rotates and 2 rotatings that you're rotating in and out pretty often, and we all know that reason is that core gameplay, knowing how you play together on a day in and day out basis. I think him just being back in the lineup makes that difference. Again, this is obviously fanboy conversation pieces as well. Like, that has to be couched into that conversation. But ultimately, in an attempt to be objective, I really think that his ability to keep them focused is a piece that is not really quantifiable by numbers, by any stats that you try to measure, but you see it in the reaction of the team and how they play when they are all together. And maybe it's more them being together than him being on the field, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they are so comfortable being the OG Outlaws that they feel like they can do anything, and they do amazing things when they just sit back and relax and play the game, and follow their intuitions, what put them together in the first place. So, right, yes, I think that they're going to have similar success, but maybe not at the same level, not this season, not at this stage.
Take a shot. Using season and stage mixed up. That is the thing that we do on all of our podcasts. It is an ongoing gag. But yeah, like the only issue I have, like, okay, so if we look at the Tracer play, yes, it's great that they are having one person in particular specialize on that role. The downside to that is now they're into a situation where Linkser haven't been their best Widowmaker player. Who's going to take up that role at this point? They really don't have another Widowmaker player on that roster. So that's like another thing that kind of confuses me too. Like, are they going to get into a situation where, they put in Clockwork or Jake if he is in the game, where Jake goes back to the Tracer and then Linkser is free to go back to the Widowmaker? Like, I'm kind of torn on that because Linkser has proven to be the better Tracer player, and while yes, we don't have like a ton of statistics in regards to like it, we don't have like the same amount of statistics just because he did see less play compared to the other players in regards to that certain role, but the execution from him has been there. But like, I mean, do you have him back on a Widow when it's called to have a Widow, or do you have someone else take up that role?
So if he's gonna main specialize in Tracer and be that main player for them, we know that they have to have a Widow at some point. Maybe it'll do well. You'll have teams that are basically planning on Linkser being on Tracer and not on Widow, and then you see the swap, right? And then they have to, the team has to react to that. They have to deal with it, or they get wrecked by it. Maybe these are the types of scenarios that you see happen. You see Linkser playing Tracer for the first half, get a couple of pulses off, back out, go jump on Widow, and then there's a quick swap around, and then the next thing you know, they're completely destroying with when the team was preparing for something different. I don't really know how else you play something like that when you have your best DPS player on Widow also playing Tracer, and those two are usually the tandem combo that you're looking for. Like it's awkward. But maybe when they don't need Widow, they can do that weird swap back that no one will be paying attention to, and then the next thing you know, they're getting wrecked. Let's just hope for some amazing there. I am going to hope for some amazing there because I don't really know what they're going to do, especially considering we can't pick anybody up right now. So we'll see. And maybe again, like we're looking down the line later on. Maybe somebody is again still in the background, practicing Widow, waiting to be able to support Linkser when he's playing Tracer. Maybe Tracer's his real calling.
It could be. I mean, just spend enough time on it, and maybe we will see his Tracer play mirror his Widow play, because his Widow play has been exceptional. I don't think it's like top 2 or top 3 in the league, but it has been one of the better Widows nonetheless.
I mean, they call him the best, Widow v Widow ever. I mean, well, not ever, but in the league. I mean, if you want someone to take out a Widow that's taking out your team, you go for Linkser. Right, yeah. I mean, so there you go.
All right, well, looking ahead, we still have 2 more days this week in Stage 3, Week 2, so let's go ahead and preview the remainder games that we do have. So on Friday, which is tomorrow, Friday the 13th, expect some slaughter, I guess. We have at 4 p.m. the LA Valiant going up against the Dallas Fuel, so I'm going to go ahead and take this one. So, all right, we look at the Valiant. They're coming into this game on a pretty big hot streak. They have 4-0 wins so far at this stage. They 4-0'd the Dynasty, they 4-0'd the Dragons, and, they 4-0'd the Shock, which was another one that was throwing some people off. And then we have the Fuel, who managed to take the Seoul Dynasty to a map 5 in a losing effort yesterday. And they just looked like a completely different team because they had their main tank, OGE, make his Overwatch League debut. So, he was at the helm. And, we saw so much great things out of the Fuel yesterday. Like, I was pumped after that Dynasty Fuel game. I was sweating. Don't get me wrong. Like, it was a very close series. It could have gone either way. But, like, I was so ecstatic to see the performance that the Fuel put in, even if it is against my Dynasty. But, like, with OGE on that main tank role, basically what happened was, like, we got to see Mickey on the off tank with the D.Va play a lot more aggressively than he's been able to, just because since Dallas has had like this rotating door of tanks, just like the Houston Tracer players basically, Mickey's been like so torn between knowing like when he needs to peel and who he needs to protect, and he was just able to step up the aggression and really, boost her forward and get those micro missiles and pick up some kills and just keep up pace with OGE. And then we got to see Rascal and Effect paired together pretty consistently, and they've definitely proven to be the better DPS combo for the Fuel. And, I would say, like, when I look at this one, like, I'm expecting a very close series between these two. The Valiant have looked really good. I don't think they're just going to come in and 4-0 the Fuel based off of what we have seen, because if they're already able to take the Dynasty to a Met 5, and that's the first time that they've really played together on the main stage, that just shows you, like, how good this Fuel team can eventually end up being. And, this is just the beginning. We're going to see this team grow. And come stage 4, I don't think it's too hard to say like whether or not they'll be a playoff contender at this stage, but in stage 4, who knows? Like the Fuel could be considered to be one of the favorites, which could be like completely like out of the blue just because we've kind of become accustomed to the Fuel like not living up to the expectations that we've set for them just based off of their past success. It's kind of like the same thing with the Dynasty, failing to make the playoffs in both stages so far. So when I look at this series in particular, I'm looking at that tank line. I'm looking at the aggression that they have. I'm looking at how they're going to be able to create space for their DPS. And, if they pair Rascal and Effect for the Fuel, I think, it would look pretty good for the Fuel in this one. But I am expecting this to go to a map 5. And I think, like, the Valiant have shown a bit more cohesion just because they have had a little bit more time to prep as a team with, Space being called up and having already been scrimming with the team in the past, and Custa has looked amazing for them on the support line. And I think they'll be able to kind of, like, ride that momentum in this series, but I'm expecting it to go the distance. I had the Valiant taking this one 3-2, but, expect fireworks if this is anything like the Dynasty Fuel game, because the Fuel are going to come to play, and the Valiant are more than up to the task. So moving on at 6 p.m. on Friday Pacific time, we have the San Francisco Shock going up against the Shanghai Dragons. So Gabe, we've seen the half-soul dragons basically. They got all their new pieces. They've kind of been flip-flopping some people around. We've seen Sky or Zhu Fanjun from Miraculous Youngster kind of be in and out of the lineup. I know in their later games they chose to go with their other 2 support players. And again, there is that disconnect. Do you think like the comms are going to be a bit clear at this point? Are you expecting, the Dragons to still be kind of like caught out of position because their dive synergy just still isn't there because they're still trying to do a lot of translating between their Chinese players and their Korean players?
Language is still going to be an issue.
Mm-hmm.
There's the only hope you really have in seeing this game, right, it is that they are starting to feel each other's play, because the language barrier is an absolute hindrance in a game that requires such intricate communication, even if it is just screaming monkey, 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 right? Bob. So that's
I mean, it's everyone. It's not just Bob.
No. I just love it. I just love Bob. But anyway, yeah, no. I mean, even if that's what it is, I think that it really makes a huge difference. I still think I'd like to see Shanghai win this one. I think that they have the ability here. I think they're stepping in. They are. Can I pick them? I'm going to pick. I think they're going to pick, but it's going to be a 5-map game. They're going to go the full distance. I think Gregory is going to like really just kind of show up and show out. I think they're going to feel each other's play. I'm a big fan of the Shock though. Like there's a lot of really good stories over there that drew me to liking them, even if I'm not pulling for them all the time. And so emotionally I'm there with those guys, but I really think that aside from the language barriers, I think that Shanghai is really starting to get together and feel themselves as a unit, as a new unit together, as a new play style together, and that'll be, I think, the difference here for them. So I'm going to just say 5 games and Shanghai for their very first win.
I want to believe, but if we see Dante and the Sombra,
yeah, I know,
just assassinating the backline, I don't know. But
I
I've liked the new looks that we've seen from the Dragons. It's just a matter of the synergy being there, because there's so many times where one of the aspects of the dive composition is out of sync with the other, and until they get all that synced up, they're in for some pretty long nights of Overwatch League. But we have seen some really good looks from their tank line and from Ado, playing the Tracer or Genji, depending on, what heroes he's playing at the time. So who knows? But, the Dragons are eventually going to figure it out. They will win a map, or a series, I should say, at some point. They have won some maps. Not a lot, but some. But I don't know if this would be their first win. At 8 p.m. to finish off Friday night, we have the Seoul Dynasty going up against the LA Gladiators, and alright, so we look at this. We saw Fisher sitting out in yesterday's 4-0 win over the Shanghai Dragons. He has the flu.
Yep.
So more than likely, he's going to be missing this game.
Feel better, Fisher. Feel better.
So filling in for Fisher was iRemix, who, pretty big shoes to fill on that team, just because of how impactful Fisher has been since joining the Gladiators from the Spitfire. And he proved to be more than up for the task. He had a pretty good series overall against Shanghai. And then, looking at Dynasty, they are also without a tank because Zunba, as I mentioned earlier, is dealing with a minor wrist injury. I'm not expecting Zunba to play either, so when you kind of compare the two, like, they are definitely, like, two standout tanks in the league. Granted, one is a main tank, one is an off tank, but I think when you compare the two, I think Fisher has more of an impact on the overall, like, team fight for the Gladiators as opposed to Zunba on the Dynasty. So I think Fisher just offers a bit more bite in this case. And then, we kind of, like, look back. We saw Fleta in this last series. We got to see him on Widowmaker. He played a lot better, kind of like returning to form, maybe. Who knows? It's been a little bit too inconsistent in Stage 2 for me to be, like, fully behind him again and praising him to no extent. Because, I mean, that's Libero at this point. But that Surefour versus Fleta showdown is really what this series is going to be about at this point. We've seen, like, the Gladiators kind of, like, tout how great Surefour is on a Widowmaker, going as far as saying that he's the best Widowmaker in the league. And, I know you're trying to make your teammate feel good, but that is absolutely not the case. I think, without question, that goes to Libero from the New York Excelsior. But Surefour has done pretty well on the Widow, and so has Fleta, so who gets the better of that exchange? I don't know, but I think at the end of the day, I think the tank line is going to come out stronger for the Dynasty. I think the Dynasty are going to take this one 3-1. Gladiators, as soon as Fisher comes back, they'll be back in full swing. I've liked the additions that they have made, picking up Silk Thread. He's looked really good. Their DPS line as a whole has really paid dividends for the team, but, without Fisher, they're probably not going to have as much space to work with, and that will ultimately be their downfall in that series. Now, moving on to Saturday to finish off the week, we kick things off with a barn burner. I mean, we got the London Spitfire going up against the Philadelphia Fusion. So, a battle of two high caliber teams here. High power offense on both fronts. Very aggressive tank play on one side compared to the other, because, I mean, not to say that the Spitfire aren't aggressive, but they're not Fraggy. I mean, let's be real here. Fraggy's just on another level at this point on the Reinhardt. But Gabe, how do you think this one is going to play out?
I have like this really weird feeling that Fusion is absolutely just going to come out swinging. They're going to punch London in the nose and just drop them. I mean, I don't know, but I don't think it'll be a 4-0. I think it'll be a five map game. Fraggy is he's just aggressive. He's just aggressive. Like, wow. But I mean, don't take away the fact that you've got Birdring. He's one of my favorite players on the Spitfire, and he has personality, outside of the game and inside of the game, and the way he plays is the same, and as that smooth personality, and he just kind of slides in and just wrecks you. You're done. Out, get out of the way. So yeah, I really think that it's going to be a like you said, barn burner. I think it's going to be a 5-map game. I think we're going to see the Philadelphia Fusion take down the London Spitfire. I know that I'm going 2 dark horses right here, like it probably shouldn't be picked. But I just think that they're really gelling well together. I think they have shown synergy in this last stage that we didn't quite expect to see, or rather I didn't quite expect to see. I really enjoyed watching their interactions. I think that Fraggy is a phenomenal, like, he's a core leader of their team, and like is really just important to to how their team works around the maps and around their strategies. And obviously that's the obvious statement, but I really think that it's going to be a long game, and we're going to see a lot of really good play. If I'm wrong, it's still going to be a 5-map game. If I'm wrong and they lose, it's still going to be 5 maps, because I just think that that's what we're going to see out of this. So don't prove me wrong, guys.
Well, I see you were supporting your fellow beardsman, so
yes.
I like it.
I mean,
that was what I took away from that.
It's really just, I mean, he's trying. He's getting there. We'll see.
All right, well, moving on at 3 p.m. Pacific time on Saturday, we have the New York Excelsior taking on your Houston Outlaws. So, all right, looking back at the previous series between these two, not looking so good for the Outlaws. New York has taken both series with a map score of 7-1-0. Now, we already talked about Linkzr being, their current solution to the Tracer play, but he is a very tall task in trying to deal with Saebyeolbe, and, we've seen teams try to approach this series kind of differently when it comes to Saebyeolbe. We have some Tracers out there that are just like, you know what? I'm not going to try to mess with you, fam. I'm just going to ignore you the entire game, and
just play the little dance all around.
It hasn't really worked that well. And then you have people that are like, all right, I'm up for the challenge, and that hasn't really worked well either. So, really not many people have figured out exactly how to deal with SBB. Linkzr, though, he's looked really good. I hope he can go toe-to-toe with Saebyeolbe. I don't know if they'll be dueling or if they'll just be doing the dance battle like we've seen from time to time. But at the core, though, when I look at these two teams, you have to reward the flexibility of the New York Excelsior on that DPS line. I don't think Houston has as expanded as a hero pool, and, that's not to say that anti-dive can't work against New York with the Junkrat, but, it's hard to say, that's something that they could fully rely on against Saebyeolbe, because he's already seen that look from Houston, and New York has had Houston's number at this point. This could just be a case where, New York is going to come in, pick up another 3-1 or 4-0. But, I feel like in this one, the Outlaws are really going to have to rely on their tank play and being able to peel for the support line, because you don't want to be into a position where, say, Saebyeolbe is just kind of prodding and doing his own thing, because, your support line just isn't going to be there at that point. So if the Outlaws tanks can really come through, then they should fare better in this one. But, I'm not feeling confident in Houston in this one. I think New York just has their number. I think New York is going to 4-0 them again, but, the Outlaws have kind of done some unexpected things against some of the top teams, so, I'm not going to completely rule them out. They've been a team that either 4-0s or gets 4-0'd, kind of like the Valiant in that case, but, it's just a question of which Outlaws is going to show up today. It's definitely a team that's up to the task, but I don't think they're going to be able to pull this one out. But, to finish off the week, we have another interesting game. At 5 p.m. Pacific time, we have the Florida Mayhem going up against, the streaking Boston Uprising. So, we got mistakes coming in. I think Logix wasn't playing today. I don't know if he'll still be subbed out for the Mayhem. So we could see a lot of Saya player for the Mayhem. So, with that in mind, who do you think is going to take this one, Gabe?
I mean, I think that the obvious choice here is Boston, and I like Florida Mayhem. They're a lot of fun. They really take advantage of their Overwatch League credentials. They really enjoy themselves, but I don't think that they're doing it right now. Not against Boston Uprising. We're gonna see. I mean, obviously, I didn't get to see Mistakes play this evening. From what I understand, the hammer was dropped, and everyone has been put on notice. He's here. So if that's the case, there really shouldn't be any contest at this point. They're going to walk in, and they're going to walk out at a 4-0. And at the end of the day, Florida Mayhem, you're going to look really good coming in, and that's going to be about it.
Yeah, I want to say it's been 6 wins in a row for Boston. I'll double check it now.
Yeah, I mean,
it's 7.
And they're reinvigorated with everything else that's going on around them, all the extra scrutiny, all the extra drama. I mean, all they really want to do is put behind them everything else and say, we're here to play Overwatch, and this is what we want to do. We don't want to talk about everything else. We don't want to talk about anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
This is what we're doing.
Right,
so.
And, kind of looking back, they've won 7 straight series, and you look at the teams they've beaten. They've beaten Excelsior, they beat Outlaws, they beat Fusion, they beat Gladiators, they beat the Shock and the Fuel, who, might be considered to be some of the lesser teams, but they also, beat the Valiant, too, so these are a lot of, playoff caliber teams that Boston is beaten. Now, granted, it's always not a 4-0, because most of those wins have been in Mat 5s, but, still edging out some of the best teams in the league. Definitely not something that we need to be scoffing at. And Boston, despite what the community thought about them, it's safe to say, the community was wrong about this team. They are gelling. Their dive has looked really good, and that was true in Stage 1. And that's really what kind of, got them surging in the first place and kind of like took people off guard. Like their dive synergy has looked like one of the best in the league, and we should expect to continue to see that from them moving forward, just because that still is the prominent meta. So Boston could be one of those teams that could be fighting for a playoff spot down the line for Stage 3, and with Mistakes coming in and having the impact that he did today against the New York Excelsior, I'm expecting him to have a similar impact against some Mayhem. So, should be a very fun one that, last day to wrap things up this week should have plenty of spice with those matches, and I cannot wait for that. But, before we wrap things up, we do have to move into our community corner. So, Gabe, is there anyone out there in the community that you would like to give a shout out to before we close things out?
I'm going to just go ahead and shout out my wife, who I enjoy playing Overwatch with on a nightly basis. I'm gonna do that anyway. She's gonna kill me for it afterwards, but she's like, she's in the community. She is one of our mods over in the Cavalry. She plays in our 6 stack. She and she's new to Overwatch in general and shooters as well. So gonna do an unofficial we'll do it that way.
All right. For me, I already brought this person up earlier when I was talking about the event, but I'm going to shout out Softy. Softy is a former Overwatch podcaster. He was one of the co-hosts over on Overcast. And, as I mentioned, we ran a ton of Retribution brawls this week. Softy was there, as was Wicked Ella, who does the Blue Zone PUBG podcast, formerly Overplayed for Overwatch. And that was, back on Tuesday, and we just had a ton of fun. And, I already talked about, my experience with that, but, nowadays, I am covering so much content and watching so much esports, I don't always get a ton of time to actually play Overwatch. So the times that I do play, I really do cherish. So it was just great to really just catch up with old friends and, check out the new stuff, which has been amazing. We did get a new review in this week. This was posted over on iTunes. That was a 5-star review that was sent in from Badger Sloth. He says, "Love the podcast, enjoyable to listen to and informative, fair opinions and personable hosts. Definitely a must listen. Keep up the great work, guys." And Badger Sloth, thank you so much for that review. Always good to see some reviews getting sprinkled in every now and then. But guys, that is going to do it for us here tonight. So I'm going to go ahead and let you know where you can get a hold of us and my guest here tonight. So if you would like to email the show, you can email us at hndoverwatch@gmail.com. You can find the podcast over on Twitter at hndoverwatch. You can find us streaming on Twitch, which hopefully you're here right now. I know there are some people hanging out in chat. But if you're listening to the audio version, you can find us on Twitch at twitch.tv/OWLN show, and we did hit Twitch affiliate, guys, so you can support the show by, hitting that subscribe button on our Twitch channel, whether it is, you shilling out $4.99 or using your Twitch Prime. It's all good. Any little bit helps, and, that money does go towards, prizes for our pick'ems, things like that. We'll probably be doing some giveaways here soon. Who knows what to expect, and who knows, maybe we'll have some tournaments, We do have the Cavalry Never Dies here, so that could always make a comeback as well. But,
we can
guys,
get this going again.
We do have 3 shows a week, as I have mentioned in the past. We have Overwatch League Network, which is our flagship. Well, I mean, in this case, it's more our Overwatch League specific show. I'm so used to saying flagship just because I say that on our second show. But Overwatch League Network, covering all things Overwatch League every week. That's every Monday at 7 p.m. Pacific time. We have OWLN The Backcap. That is our Path to Pro / Contenders podcast, focusing on Contenders NA and EU. That is Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Pacific time. And Heroes Never Die, our longest standing podcast, and arguably the best one, because we're 106 episodes in, and we are fantastic. That is at Thursdays, which, if you're here, you know that. That is at 5 p.m. Pacific time. And really, guys, it's just always to hang out and just talk to people in chat, and, always good to know when our audio isn't actually going through. Yeah. That was a fun snippet, because, I created a new scene because I switched back to OBS Studio, and I forgot that it wouldn't pick up my mic immediately, so apologies if you were listening on our live version anyway. I'm probably just gonna have to release an audio-only version, and, just do a backdrop, but that's besides the point, guys. We do have a Discord. You can join our huge community over there. It's pretty active. I know, last time I checked, I know we were over 200 members. That is at discord.me/OWLN show. We do have a YouTube channel, guys, but You know, we're still waiting on getting our custom URL. Last time I checked, I think we were at 70 subscribers. I think we need 100 to get that custom URL. But if you want to find our content, all you have to do is, you know, go to that search bar, type in Overwatch League Network, and our stuff should pop up. You can find all of our podcast episodes, both Overwatch League Network, OWLN The Backcap, as well as this podcast, Heroes Never Die, up there. We also do, like, top plays for the Overwatch League. We post some of our game night highlights there as well. But really, you know, just a ton of content there, so it's another way for you guys to watch the show if you're not just watching Twitch VODs or listening to the audio-only version of the podcast. And if you'd like to find myself, Totally Drunk, you can find me on Twitter at TotallyDrunkCTR. I'm not going to bother saying my Twitch because I don't stream there, because I'm usually on this, you know, Twitch channel. Edinar, who's not here, can be found at Edinar Overwatch. And Gabe, you know, where can people get a hold of you over on the social media?
You can catch up with me on Twitter at Gabus_OW. And if you want to come and hang out with us in the Cavalry podcast Discord, where you can also catch up with Enter the Iris, we have game nights every other Friday night. This coming Friday night is one of them. You can come and check out that anytime you want.
Yeah, you can also shoot up Bob if you show up.
Kill Bob.
That's all you need to do. You need to kill and burn him. That's the two primary things. All right, guys. Well, that is going to do it for us here tonight on Heroes Never Die. Again, Gabe, thank you so much for filling in, man. You know,
thanks.
I mean, we haven't really gotten to do a lot of stuff lately, so it's always good to sit down and talk some Overwatch with you. Always a pleasure.
Hey, man, it was really a blast. I hope we get to do it again sometime soon. Maybe we'll have you on our show.
Yeah, we'll have to make that happen. It's been a while since I've been on a Cavalry, and I haven't been there since, you know, the revamp, really. But for now, guys, that is going to do it for us, and we will see you guys back here on Monday night for OWLN. Guys, have a good night.